Hello, hello, party people! I'm so excited to be here. This is Shenee. Obviously, I'm not there live, but I am here via projector or whatever you're watching this on, and I am just so thrilled, so honored to be here, so excited to hang out with the squirrels and all you guys, and thank you so much for inviting me. So, I am here to talk about branding. What? Everybody up in the air for branding, and I can't see if you're doing it, but I'm just gonna assume that you're raising the roof if people still know how to do that. And yes, so I'm gonna talk to you about branding your blog, and that's me. My name is Shenee Howard, and in fact, you probably are wondering, who is Shenee? Who is this person who is talking to us right now? Well, like I said, my name is Shenee Howard, and I am a brand engagement expert. So what that means is I help entrepreneurs and small businesses come online and like make a splash. Like I want them to sort of bring their awesomeness offline online. And I also have a blog. I write about business and branding, obviously, over at heyshenee.com. And you can also find me on Twitter at heyshenee. And again, I love branding. It's one of my favorite things in the world, and that's why I'm so thrilled to be talking to you about it today. So get excited about branding. Yes. Yes. Again, I'm raising the roof again. Just hoping you're raising the roof too. So let's get going. So, what is branding and why the heck should you care? You know, branding is sort of like the word is kind of like plastic or hooking up. Like, you know, they don't really mean anything specific, and you're not really sure what people mean when they say, oh, hooking up. That's sort of what branding is. And every brand strategist is going to give you a slightly different definition for branding, and of course, mine is the best, okay? Not really, it might not be, but this is the one I use and the one I use for my clients and my students. When someone has a problem, you solve it with style. So, well, what this means is branding is not necessarily about logos, which is what sort of people typically think a brand is a logo, is a visual identity. A brand is all those things brought together. So, right here we have three very distinct, very popular brands: Nike, Lululemon, and Starbucks. Each of these brands sell something pretty simple, pretty standard in a very crowded market: shoes, yoga clothes, and Starbucks. Now, I don't know about you, but I get my yoga clothes from Walmart. And I do get my shoes from Nike, and I do go to Starbucks. But the reason why these places get so much business, is why they're so popular, is because they solve a problem with real style. One of my favorite stories is about Starbucks versus McDonald's. So McDonald's like regularly beats Starbucks in taste tests. In fact, my mother is one of those people who cannot stand Starbucks coffee. She says it's nasty, and she loves McDonald's coffee. But here's the thing: if you're cool, you're an entrepreneur. Obviously, if you're not cool, obviously cool people go to McDonald's. But you know what I mean? Like, if you're an entrepreneur, you want to write, you want to be in this creative environment, you're not going to go to McDonald's. You're going to go to Starbucks. So even though they're selling the same thing, Starbucks is doing it with more style, so you want to go there. Same thing with yoga pants. These yoga clothes are awesome, they're well made, but they're expensive, and you don't necessarily have to even go to Lululemon to get your yoga clothes, but you go because of the experience. They have yoga classes, they have a manifesto, they write a blog. Everything about it is sort of a movement that you want to be a part of, and that's sort of what branding is about. And again, Nike is another great example. How many companies sell shoes? Lots of them, but when you think about shoes, what's the first company you think about? Nike. And it's because they have put all of their advertising efforts, everything they do is into this idea of, you know, just do it. You can achieve anything with awesome shoes. One of the best examples of their branding is the Nike app on iPhone, which is awesome. And they totally didn't have to do that, but they're doing that because it strengthens their brand. And it's, again, it's not about the logo, it's about what you do, what you're about, and sort of how you go about things with style. So that's what we're going to be talking about, is how to create your own brand with style, or swag, as I'll say later. So before we even get started, let's talk about this. Spend some time thinking about your blog or your future blog. I'm sure everybody's going to want to have a blog after this lovely conference is over, and think about sort of what problems are you solving. If you have a blog, you are solving a problem. I don't want you to think that you're not. So for example, if you're a style blog, you solve, if you're in a style rut. If you're a movie blog, what movie should I watch? If you're a personal blog, I need some inspiration, or I need to know I'm not alone. We all solve problems, and it's pretty essential that we know what problems we solve before we get into this whole branding game. So take a little bit to think about it. What problems are you solving with your blog? Or what problems do you want to solve with your blog? And we'll talk a little bit more about problems. In fact, if you have some water or some juice, you can go ahead and make a drinking game out of it. Every time I say, problems or solving people's problems, you can take a swig. You will either be drunk, depending on what drink you have, or you will have to go to the bathroom, because I talk about it a lot, because that's what branding is about, is solving problems. I hope you took a drink just then. So, and why should you care about branding? So, we live in a world where there are a lot of blogs, y'all. A lot of blogs. This is just the number just for WordPress sites, and that doesn't even include Blogspot sites. And I'm sure there's like a lot of people use Blogspot. So 56 million, and there are hundreds and thousands of blogs that created each day. If you live in a world where there's just so much volume, and there's only a limited number of topics, and everybody's talking about the same thing, but when you want to do a blog, how do you do it? How do you create something that's truly unique and something that people want to read? And that's what branding is about, and that's what we're going to do in this little session. I'm going to teach you how to turn your blog or future blog into a brand using a couple of simple tricks and just a couple questions you can ask yourself about your business. And again, I'm sure it has to do with problems. Take a sip. So here's my little magical graph that I created to show you sort of what a brand is. I use it for my clients, and it's perfect for this too. It's great for bloggers, and it's sort of what is a brand. Obviously, if somebody has a problem, you solve it, but even more than that, it has all of these elements, and it's great to see it like this because you can see literally what you can do and how to fill in to kind of have a very robust blog. So even if you can only do a little bit of each, by kind of covering your bases, you're really kind of creating a really, a good vibe when people come to your site, and people will start to notice that your brand is a lot stronger when you do these things. When I first started, I just made sure that I was telling my story, engaging people, having styling content. Even though I didn't have that many readers, things started to grow a lot quicker because I was doing that consistently, and I wasn't focusing on one thing or, focusing on just writing a ton. I was really thinking about what I want my brand to be. So I don't know if you're going to have the worksheet or not. I hope you will. If not, just kind of take out a sheet of paper and kind of sketch this out, sort of what this graph looks like, because as we go along, we're going to be filling in each little circle with little things about your brand and your business. Even if you don't have a blog yet, you can sort of fill in sort of what you want to do. So get out that sheet of paper, draw something out, or kind of bring out take out your worksheet so that we can kind of work through this together. So exciting. Yay. Let's get started. Let's talk about your big idea, or as I like to call it, your battle cry, which is why I have this picture of this angry Gerard Butler standing on a pile of bodies in 300, which is one of my favorite movies, obviously. And the reason why I call it a battle cry, because battle cries are used to inspire soldiers to victory. So whatever is going on in their lives, whatever is happening, they sort of are going towards a common goal, and they're going to do everything they can to get to that goal. In 300, it was "This is Sparta," which, represented the fact that, this is our town, we have to defend it, we have to sort of kill everyone in sight so that we can protect it. So what that has to do with you. Battle cries exist a lot in pop culture, and especially in really great brands. For example, Rachel Ray, 30-minute meals. It's a very simple mission. It's a very simple idea that sort of brings everything together. So whatever she's cooking, doesn't matter if it's a pot roast, a turkey, or even a salad, she's going to do it under 30 minutes. It's clear, it's concise, it's easy to follow. This is a really good way to make sure that your brand has a really great big idea, because if somebody can go to that and be like, okay, that's what we're doing, that's what we're trying to accomplish, they are more invested in your brand and they're more excited about it. For example, our speaker this morning, Gala, hers is radical self love. So everything on her blog ends up exploring this idea of radical self-love, whether it's her posts, photos of her, photos of herself, her products, everything ends up kind of going towards this core mission of radical self-love. Same thing like bros before hoes, which is kind of silly, but I don't even know if that's the proper spelling of hose, but I'm gonna take it and that's what I'm gonna use to spell it. But the idea is that, this is sort of a mantra or way of living that this phrase kind of explores and says, like it's us against all the girls, like, us before women, stuff like that. These all seem kind of like very simple things, but it's what builds a brand. Again, if we go back to the idea of Nike earlier, just do it. And it's about this idea of, we're going to have shoes that are going to help us accomplish anything. I don't know if anybody remembers the show Heroes. But on Heroes, it was a great show and it sort of tapered off, but it was really good because the whole mission of the show was to save the cheerleader, right? So everything that happened was all about making sure that she didn't die and that she wasn't killed. So when you think about your own big idea, obviously it doesn't have to be that hardcore, but it's always really effective if you have something or some mission for people to accomplish for themselves. So take a second and think about it. What is the big thing you want for people? Why are you writing about this and not something else? How do you want people to have changed after they leave your blog? What is your blog really about? Asking yourself these questions are really going to help you figure out what that big idea or your battle cry is. For example, my battle cry is guru-free business. So I don't believe that any business should believe that they need somebody else to tell them what to do. So everything I do, from my content, from my products, to even this talk, is all about empowering you to create a brand by yourself without me. Like, you don't need me. I'm just here to help you get there. I'm not a guru. So I want you to take a couple of minutes to think about your battle cry. What is it? What is that one big thing you can help people get? What is that one crazy awesome thing that everybody's going to gather together and come to your blog and freak out because they're trying to accomplish this goal? Sound good? Take a second to think about it. Next up is personality, and this is one of my favorites of the elements of your awesome brand. And a blog is defined by the person who is sitting on the other end writing the content, right? So it's so important that you are able to bring your personality online. One of the things that makes people come back to blogs over and over again is when they can go to a site and be like, wow, I feel like I really know her. I feel like she's really sharing who she is. I can really relate to her. And it also is the ultimate differentiating factor. This is one of my favorite examples is Jimmy Fallon. So Jimmy Fallon obviously hosts a late night show. And there are, 3 other late night hosts? There's Jay Leno, there's David Letterman, there's Conan O'Brien, and then there's also Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Fallon has sort of turned his place on late night to this big party and this huge manifestation of his personality, his impersonations, his love of music, the fact that he has his guests play beer pong with him. He's really made it so that he stands out and he's the one to watch when you go to late night television because he's so different, and because instead of creating or sort of shrinking his personality to fit sort of the late night format, he expanded the show. He made it totally different. Like, his band is the Roots. He has made every effort to make the show as his as possible. And when you go to the other shows, the hosts are, they're great, but it doesn't really feel like you can't find that content on another show. But when you go to Jimmy Fallon's show and when you watch Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, you are really, really watching a show that seems to be his. And that's exactly what we want to do with our blogs, and that's sort of what differentiates blogs and what makes us go read one blog and not the other is the personality behind it. So it's so important that you infuse your personality. So many times I look at blogs, and this happens in business too, where people are trying to be like other people. Trust me, people are not going to pay you to be someone else, and they're not going to read your blog if you're acting like everyone else. People want you to be you. So making sure that you're bringing your personality into your brand at all times is a great way to make sure that you're doing that. And Jimmy Fallon is a great inspirational example. I mean, if you go watch the show tonight, or I guess you can't because it's Saturday, but when you go on Monday, really pay attention to how thoughtfully he has thought out every single piece of his show and how it just is totally Jimmy, enthusiastic, fun, happy. It's just him. And that's what we want to create with our own blogs. So it's time for another workshop, y'all. What? So there's sort of a little process to bringing your personality online, because it can kind of seem overwhelming. Like, how much do you tell? How much do you not tell? The biggest thing that I want you to remember when it comes to sort of bringing yourself online is to think of this question. What do you want people to know about you and your personality? Do you want them to know that you're happy? Do you want them to know that you're serious sometimes? Like, what parts of your personality do you think need to be spoken for online? Like, for example, if you're passionate about music, if you're passionate about movies. My thing is that I'm really into 90s culture, and I'm really into Keanu Reeves and the Backstreet Boys, which I'm going to admit that to you guys. And that's cool. So it's a huge part of my brand. My bio book that you might have gotten before you came to this session or this conference is full of pop culture references, full of pictures of Zoolander, Keanu Reeves, stories about Will Smith. Like, it's all a part of who I am. It's the fact that I love pop culture. I grew up, my third parent was the TV, which could be bad or good, but I'm gonna say it's good because it's made me into someone that just really appreciates pop culture and loves the stuff. And so that comes through in my brand. And so there might be a lot of brand strategists out there, but I don't know how many brand strategists are going to use Keanu Reeves as a branding example. So really bringing that to the forefront and make sure that that's clear. What are you like passionate about? So, like, for example, I'm passionate about pop culture. I want people to know about that, but what else is there? Like, are you just like really passionate about what you're blogging about and you want to geek out about it? Really share those things. And what are some fun little other details that you want people to know about you? So, like, for example, if you have a dog, if you like to go scuba diving, it's about sort of cultivating those little facts and things that kind of create a brand for you. And it's about figuring out ways to inject that into your brand every day. So, for example, you could share a picture of your dog. You can share a playlist of your favorite music. You can do a roundup of the best feel-good movies. Even if your blog is about something totally different, bringing those things in sort of helps really round out your brand and makes people really want to hang out with you because they're like, oh, this is a whole complete person. And again, go back to the Jimmy Fallon example. He is a talk show host. So technically, all he has to do is show up and talk, but he goes way beyond and above that. You know, he does these little music tributes, he does skits, sketches. It's all about sort of going above and beyond and making sure people are really getting a sense of the parts of you that you want to show them or tell them. So take a couple minutes or a couple seconds, I'm not sure how much time we should allow here to think about ways that you can bring some of your personality to your blog. And again, think really about what you want people to know about you and what you'd be excited to tell them about. All right, ready, go. Okay, next up is content. So content is obviously a huge part of blogging, but you know, so many blogs end up kind of writing content that isn't focused or is not clear. And again, it's not about necessarily writing a bunch. It's about writing great stuff and writing it for the right people. And a lot of people also get caught up because, like, say you run a design blog or a wedding blog, and there are so many of those types of blogs out there. How do you sort of kind of come out as a voice that's sort of unique? We talked a little bit about personality, and personality is a huge part of this. And I'm going to push this a little more when I talk about content. And the reason why I have Steven, who is my favorite here, is because he sort of exemplifies a point I want to make about content. And especially, let's talk about the news. So So, technically, Stephen Colbert reports the news. He does talk about things that are happening around the world, but obviously he has his own unique spin on it, and it has its own specific lean. And it has a specific lean because of his audience and who he's talking to. And we're going to talk a little bit more about audience later, but this is a big part of what content you write. Your content is not just about you, it's about the people who are reading your stuff. So obviously the people who are going to watch the Colbert Report are not here to watch hard news. They're there to watch him sort of make fun of the news, to be his personality, to be himself, and kind of make them laugh. So could you imagine if you went to watch the Colbert Report and all of a sudden he was just sitting and he was just doing the news without any jokes or any fun or anything like that? All of his content is a reflection on sort of where he is, which is, Comedy Central, and what he is all about, which is, kind of making fun of this, this character. I can't even look at him without laughing. So, who are you writing for, and what are they truly looking for? Every brand, or like every blog post and every skit, that Colbert does builds his brand and makes people, and build the reputation that he has. So if in your blog posts you're not really thinking about who you're really writing for, then people get confused and your blog really lacks focus. So think about sort of the experiences, the blogs you like, and sort of the stuff you read all the time. Why do you like it? What approach do they take to the content that you enjoy? Because there's, again, like the wedding blog and design blog is a really good example. There are a lot of design blogs out there, and there are a lot of wedding blogs out there, but everyone has their favorites. I have a favorite, and I don't even want to get married for a really long time, but I like the way she presents her images, and I like the story that she attaches to them. So instead of sort of posting stuff just to post, or doing roundups, or sharing content that's being shared everyone else, think of each blog post as a piece of your brand. It's an asset to kind of growing your brand and making people know more about you. Because if somebody randomly lands on your site and they kind of again, if you watched Colbert Report one day and all of a sudden it was just regular news, you're not going to go back, because you're not, that experience isn't for you, but if you go to Colbert Report and he's, laughing and he's having fun, and that's what you're looking for because of based off who you are, then you're in the right place, and that builds his brand. Again, I cannot stress this enough. It's quality over quantity. The blogger sphere is notorious for sort of lots and lots of blog posts. I write one blog post a week. I can't handle more than that, because I want to make sure that it's really good, it's on target, and it's what my people need. So whenever you write a blog post, and whenever you sit down to think about what you want to write, make sure that that's what you're really thinking about. And so that kind of leads directly into engagement. And again, it's about the quality versus quantity thing, and the fact that, a lot of times we get caught up in the fact that our brands don't have enough people, or people don't know enough about us yet. Again, that is a huge branding mistake, is to not talk to your people, or to not engage them just because you don't feel like there are a lot of people listening. People are always listening, so just make sure you show up. Engagement is about making friends. The more you sort of leave your blog and talk to people, the more likely your brand will get out there, and also the more refined it becomes. If you're sort of talking to yourself on your brand and you know it, and you're not making any effort to change it, you're not able to even see what people like, what you could change, what you can improve, and how you can connect with them more. One of my favorite examples of somebody who really does engagement right is Lady Gaga and her Little Monsters. She doesn't talk to each of her fans directly, but she has kind of created a great way to engage with them in a very deep way. And speaking of battle cries and bat signals, Born This Way is her big idea, and you have her personality with it, and obviously her songs, her music all go with it, and then the way she engages with people, calling them little monsters, monster ball, it all kind of contributes to her brand. So even with somebody like Lady Gaga, you can see sort of how a brand is built. People love to feel like they're part of a community, so anytime you can create that for them, they're going to be super excited. And here are some other ideas I have from engagement. Interviewing bloggers, guest post, create interactive blog series, anything you can do to talk to your audience, even if it is a small group. So that leads us to our workshop. So here is my sort of foolproof method for creating great content and building an engaged audience. Think about your reader's problem and your big idea. So seriously, think about it. What is the big problem that you're solving for your people, and sort of what is your big idea behind it? Know it? Now think of 3 questions that your readers might have about that problem. Address these questions in a blog post, a tweet, and a Facebook post. The reason why I say that is because engagement is about sort of getting the ideas that you have and the content in front of them in as many ways as possible. It's not necessarily about lots of content. It's about sort of making sure that they know what you're about and that you're talking to them. So by doing this, you really explore the idea in a lot of different ways. You get interest for whatever content you're creating, and they also get to participate in what you're doing. So it's a great way to sort of get people engaged, make sure your content is on point. It's just all good. So here's an example of this. How do I get my kids to sleep at a decent hour so I can have me time? All right, so a blog post could be like, 5 books for bedtime. Super simple. The way you sort of get that post, where you can sort of ask people on your Facebook page, what are some of your best tips for parents who are having a hard time putting their kids to bed? And you can also feature some of those comments on your blog post. Again, that helps people feel like a part of your brand, a part of your business, and they get more excited to be there. And then you can do on Twitter, what books do you read to your kids? Again, that's another poll, another way that you can engage with them. And again, you can share those results on your blog post. So do you see what I'm talking about? It's all about really branded, focused interactions and kind of creating that vibe, creating that community around what you do. I know there's another presentation about community, but this is sort of like a big part of branding and an intro to it. So test it out, yo. Pick out a problem and start building some killer content. Think about one question and then sort of address it in a couple of ways, and play around with this as many times as you can. It's really fun, and it's a really great way to stay inspired about what you should write about. Before we talked about style, and in a way sort of we talked about it was more like swag. So it's more like if somebody has a problem, you solve it with swag. But I don't know if that was the right, but I probably am going to start using that again. But when we talk about style here, we're talking about something completely different. We're talking about aesthetics, visual style, all that jazz. I said at the beginning that a blog isn't necessarily a brand is not just a logo and colors. That's just a part of the story. It is a whole bunch of things that obviously I've been spending this couple of minutes talking about. But now we're going to talk about the visual part of it, which is super, super important. So obviously, aesthetics and design is a whole big thing, and we really don't have the time to get too into it, but this is sort of like my shorthand for giving people a start and of figuring out sort of how to make their blog be more branded to them. So this is my big trick. So everybody close your eyes, or don't close your eyes, whatever. I can't see you, so I don't know. And think about sort of your favorite outfit. In fact, you could be wearing it right now because people wear their favorite outfits at conferences. So think, how do I want to look if I'm like doing my TED Talk? Like, how do I want to look when I'm like, on the stage at my own event, rocking it out? Like, how do I want to show up the best? And that is sort of the essence of what you want your visual brand to feel and look like. So much of my work when I work with clients is about bringing their physical self, their clothes, their outfits to their digital selves or their digital worlds. So here is a really simple process I use. Again, you probably can't do this right now because you don't have Pinterest or Pinterest. I think I spelled it wrong. I'm not sure. It's in cursive, so who can even see? But anyway, this is kind of a great way for you to start if you don't have a blog, or if you have a blog that doesn't really look the way you want yet, of kind of figuring out sort of what style direction you should go. So my first step is to, again, think of that outfit, put it on, post it a picture, or find a picture that has this outfit that you would like die to have, and sort of collect images and photos and anything else that sort of really exemplifies and is in the spirit of that image. and collect those, create a board from them, pull out colors, textures, and patterns that you really like and pull them all together. So for example, if you really are into like a chevron print, or if you're really into these bright colors, if you see these colors coming up over and over again, collect those and really hone in on what it is that what direction you're going. So for example, if you really like bold prints, maybe you're kind of going more a mod direction, bright, fun, kind of really bringing those all together. And when you have that, you can send it to a designer, or you can use it for yourself when you sort of sit down and make tweaks on your own. It's really effective if you do have a designer, even if you hire someone who can like do a header or something for you for $50, which is great. If you send them this board, they sort of know exactly what to do. So I wanted to show an example of sort of what this looks like. I created one, and the inspiration was, I think it was this image right here. And what I wanted to show was sort of how we've kind of pulled all these yellows, these pale colors. It's all very earthy and kind of cozy. Actually, I think it was this image here. Yeah, it was this image. And how we sort of built a board and a style about that. You can sort of see what direction we could go with the blog, kind of soft, muted colors. So that's sort of the style piece of it. Again, I could spend literally hours and hours and hours talking about aesthetics and design, but this is just a good way to get you started, an activity you can do to sort of kind of wrap your head around sort of what your visual brand could look like, especially after if you make some of these changes and kind of implement some of the tips I had for you during this presentation. It'll even give your site sort of a fresh look to go with the fresh content and awesomeness that you're putting on there. So spend some time with that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about story. I hope you're still with me. I know we've done a couple of these, but we're almost done. We're almost to the promised land. Okay, I promise I won't say it again. Okay, so blogs by definition are sort of a platform for you to share your story, right? But if you want to have sort of a brand and not just a blog, you have to make sure that your blog is not just about your story, but it's about the story of the people who read your blog. Let's go back to the example I made about Stephen Colbert. So say that he was wanting to, do what he does, which is, kind of talk about the news and politics in a kind of a funny way, but his readers or his, viewers wanted him to sort of give the news straight up. That's a mismatch, and you need to sort of kind of know what your audience is and what they want. So it's about sort of making it so it's not about you, and once you figure out sort of what your big idea is, that your story and what you're sharing and what you're saying is sort of kind of plugs into that big idea so that people can connect with you and people will want to sort of come along for the ride. Kind of a rule of thumb that I have for kind of telling your story, because again, it gets kind of tricky because you're like, how much should I share? How much should I not share? I mean, like, we've all been to those overshare blogs where you're like, okay, I don't need to know all this. And for me, I think it's about sort of kind of talk about sort of why you are writing the blog, what led you down this path, sort of what do you love about whatever you're writing about. Because if you decide to do a blog and you really decide to do it and you really decide to devote to it and make something focused and kind of create a brand out of it, it's because you really love it, and people need to know that. And why should it be important to someone else? So why should your story, why should your blog, why should this whole thing you're doing, why should anybody care? So that's sort of where you start with kind of crafting your own story. And sort of what sort of makes your content better and what makes your blog better is if you understand your reader story as well. And you can see sort of how everything sort of relates. And again, it's all about, like I said, you can set a drinking game to me talking about solving people's problems, because that is really what a brand is about, is sort of being the person you are and solving those problems. That's a brand. So think about your reader story. Why do they love your blog? What problems are they having? What are they passionate about? And why do they love what you are writing about? So knowing these things is awesome for your brand, because it kind of guides you and it shows you where to go. If you've ever had writer's block, kind of going back to what your people need from you and what their story is and what they're struggling with, it helps inspire you. For example, if you're like a mommy blogger, I don't know if it's offensive, mommy blogger, but if you are a mom and you kind of write about parenting and stuff like that, and you're sort of going off on this deep end about recipes or crafts, but your people are really looking to learn about sort of getting time for themselves, or connecting back with their husband, some of the other things that you not necessarily would think to write about, it's important to know your reader's story so to sort of talk about that stuff. So it's really, really, really important that your story is laid out, obviously, because it strengthens your personality brand and it makes people come back for more. But also, if you really have a really clearly defined reader story, your content will be a hit every time. It will kind of be shared like wildfire, because they'll read it and be like, wow, she gets me, she knows what I'm doing. And again, that strengthens your brand. So take a second and think about it. Kind of draw this chart out on a piece of paper or something and think about what your story is versus your reader's story. What are some of the similarities? What are some of the differences? A great way to do this is just to ask them, go onto your Facebook page. I mean, all blogs should have a Facebook page, by the way. So if you don't have that, go get one and compare. Be like, hey, so tell me what you're struggling with. What do you want to hear from me? What do you love about what I do? What do you wish I did more of? The more you talk about what you do and the more that you give them the chance to communicate with you, the more you can strengthen and refine your brand to be something that not only you enjoy, but they cannot get enough of, because you're just hitting it every single time. So that's story. So take a second to think about that. So we did it. Here's the graphic in. So what is a brand? Now you know, folks. Exciting. Whoop, whoop, whoop. We got content, we got style, we got engagement, story, your big idea, about personality. So once you kind of go through your chart and fill these in with ideas that you have about sort of how to strengthen these things and get clear on these things, you really will sort of be on your way to creating a really clear brand in whatever industry you're in. Just, you don't have to get hardcore with any of the sections, just kind of write little notes, like, do you have any ideas for content? Did you have any ideas for style? Things you can do with engagement, story, but really fill this out. When I do it with my clients, they have so many light bulb moments about what a brand is once they sort of figure this stuff out. So in order to sort of reinforce this even more, I wanted to do an example. And so we have these two people. One person is Mr. Incredible. One person is Kanye West. So I guess I've been on a mommy blogger kick. So I'm using them again as an example, and I'm pretending that these two guys are creating sort of daddy blogs. And they both are kind of writing blogs about raising children. And I'm going to show you sort of how all these things, if they're different and if they're really distinct, how they make for very different brands. So we have Kanye West and Mr. Incredible. If you've never seen The Incredibles, it's a Disney film about this superhero family. It's one of my favorite movies in the history of the world, and I thought that this would be a great example here. And again, Kanye West obviously is a very famous rapper. So let's talk about the differences between them. So we have the big idea. Mr. Incredible, his idea is to raise super children, so literally super children. He wants his children to be superheroes. Kanye West wants to raise fly kids, just fly, super cool kids, right? So they're very distinct big ideas, and they're very different. And again, that's a very good example of sort of how branding works, is these distinctions. So let me talk about the personality. You have serious, focused, a little spacey, and always happy to save someone, and that's Mr. Incredible. Then you have Kanye West, who is outgoing, confident, loves music and fashion, and is very outspoken. So let's talk about how the content would be different. Mr. Incredible might write a blog post that says Superhero 101, teach your child to save a cat from a tree. Very straightforward, but very useful if you want to raise super children. And then you have Kanye West, who would do a roundup, best back to school looks for your kid. And again, because his core mission is about fly, and he wants his kids to be fashionable, this would be really great for his audience. His style is very minimal. Mr. Incredible, very minimal, focused on the content, maybe some reds and blues, but very simple. He's talking about sort of the site and sort of how it looks. And of course, Kanye West is going to be blingy, lots of colors, high-end and stylish, and you can actually see that because he has a blog and it is exactly that. For engagement, Mr. Incredible would share stories about other super kids on social media, and he calls his readers super dads. And Kanye West calls his readers fly kids and asks his readers to send photos of their children in cool outfits. So you see the difference about sort of how, based off of their big ideas and their personalities, how even though they have two blogs that talk about the same thing, they're very different, and that's sort of what branding is all about. And finally, their story. You know, Mr. Incredible is a retired superhero, and Kanye West is a very stylish rapper who decides he wants the next generation to be awesome. So again, I really want you to get this above anything else from this presentation. It's the fact that when you go out there and you write your blog, you are essentially different from everyone else just based off of being who you are on the planet. You know, whatever your personality is a huge deal, and your big idea, sort of what you want ultimately to help people accomplish. And again, it doesn't have to be super specific. It can be something like fly kids or raise super children that kind of shifts the way things go. For example, if you have a wedding blog, and again, I'm going back to the wedding blog example, the kind of obvious choice for a big idea would be like, you want to plan for a wedding, but maybe you want to create maybe your battle cry is to help people plan destination weddings. Maybe it's for weddings in Georgia, maybe it's for weddings on underwater. You know, there's all these different things like you can do to sort of kind of make your blog a little different just based off of who you are, your interests, and what you are about. In conclusion, again, I said I wouldn't sing, but I ended up singing anyway. And what I want you to know about branding is to sort of be yourself, kind of be really awesome at what you do. If you want to do a blog, make sure that you're really good at it and that you really love it. Not necessarily good at it, but like it's something that makes you happy. Because if you're just creating a blog just to create a blog, and I've done that so many times, I'm like, I'm gonna start a movie blog, I'm gonna start a cooking blog, and I'm not passionate about it, it doesn't stick. But because I'm really passionate about business, this has, you know, it definitely sticks, and it's definitely something I really love, so I keep writing. Write awesome posts. I can't stress that enough. Don't just write, don't just post. Create really great stuff that only you could create, and be the most helpful person out there. Again, you could play a drinking game from me talking about solving people's problems, but it's true. If you could be helpful for people, if people can come to your site and know that you're solving their problems, that sort of takes care of everything. Again, my biggest thing is if somebody has a question, you want to be the answer. You want to be the person who's going to help them get what they need. And again, this doesn't have to be a business, or it doesn't have to be anything specific. If you have a personal blog and you're sharing about yourself and you want it to be a brand, you're helping people not feel alone. You're sharing your experiences. So if somebody has a question about, you know, like breaking up with their boyfriend, or like you know, going vegan or something like that. If you have a personal question, if you have a personal brand, you have the opportunity to solve those problems for people. So that is my presentation about branding. Whew, hope you guys survived. I wish I could meet you guys and answer all your questions in person, but I created a little page for you called where I put all of the slides, the worksheet that I had for you guys, and a couple of things here and there to help you on your branding journey. Again, it's at heyshenee.com/nuts. I couldn't help myself. So again, thank you so much for inviting me. Thanks so much for listening, and have a fantastic conference. Thanks, guys. Bye.